What would you do if your own family suddenly told you you're not welcome anymore? Just days before Thanksgiving, I got a call that changed everything. They said I would ruin the entire dinner, but what they didn't know was the same man who got me uninvited was hiding something so big that the moment he saw me at my office, he completely lost it. My name is Talia. I'm 26, and I can still remember the exact moment my family quietly pushed me out of their world. Just days before Thanksgiving, it started with a phone call from my mom. I was standing in my kitchen holding a grocery list for the trip home. Everything felt normal until I heard her voice. It wasn't warm. It wasn't loving. It sounded distant, almost rehearsed. Then she said something that made my chest tighten instantly. You won't be coming for Thanksgiving this year. For a second, I thought I misunderstood, but before I could even react, she added, your sister's husband thinks you might ruin the atmosphere. Ruin the atmosphere? I felt frozen. I asked her what she meant, but she just sighed. Like this conversation was already exhausting for her. She explained that Ethan, my sister's new husband, felt uncomfortable around me, and since it was his first Thanksgiving with the family, they wanted things to stay peaceful. Peaceful? By removing me. The strange part? I barely knew Ethan. I had only met him twice. Once at their rushed wedding dinner, and once at a short brunch where he barely spoke. And somehow, I had already become the problem. My mom kept talking, trying to make it sound temporary. Just this year, she said. Next time it'll be different. But what hurt wasn't the excuse. It was how easily everyone agreed. My sister didn't call me. My dad didn't call me. No one questioned it. It felt like they had all silently decided I didn't belong anymore. A familiar feeling settled in the same one I had growing up, being the outsider in my own family. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend myself, but I knew how that would end. If I pushed, they'd say I was proving his point. So instead, I did something unexpected. I stayed quiet. I understand, I said, and ended the call. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by silence. Outside, the city was glowing with holiday lights. Inside, everything felt empty. And as those words replayed in my mind, you won't be coming this year, I didn't realize yet. This wasn't just rejection. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Because the next morning, the same man who got me uninvited would show up at my office, completely terrified. The next morning, I decided to push everything aside. If my family didn't want me there, fine. I'd move on. Work had always been my safe place, structured, predictable, controlled. Unlike my personal life here, things made sense. My office building downtown was already alive when I walked in. Phones ringing, people moving quickly, the smell of fresh coffee in the air. Normal, exactly what I needed. I had just sat down at my desk when my assistant knocked lightly. She looked confused. Talia, there's a man in reception asking for you. He says it's urgent. I frowned. I didn't have any meetings scheduled. Did he give a name? I asked. She hesitated for a second. Ethan. My stomach tightened instantly. Ethan? Here? For a brief moment, I thought something had happened to my sister or my parents. But my assistant didn't look worried, just puzzled. I stood up slowly, straightened my jacket, and walked toward reception, my mind racing. Why was he here? What did he want? As I turned the corner, I saw him, and instantly, something felt off. This wasn't the calm, quiet guy I had met before. He looked tense, almost panicked. The moment his eyes met mine, his expression completely changed. His face went pale, like he had just seen something impossible. For a second, neither of us moved. Then suddenly, his chair scraped loudly as he jumped to his feet. People in the lobby turned to look, and right there, in the middle of my office, Ethan started panicking. No, this can't be right, he muttered, shaking his head. I stepped closer, confused. What are you doing here? I asked. But instead of answering, he stared at me like I wasn't supposed to exist. You work here, he said, his voice breaking. Yes, I replied firmly. Why? The room had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching. And that's when Ethan whispered something that changed everything. You're Talia Morgan, the compliance director? I paused, then nodded. Yes. And in that exact moment, everything inside him collapsed. Because the next thing he said revealed a secret that explained exactly why my own family had pushed me away. The moment I confirmed who I was, Ethan looked like the ground had disappeared beneath him. His hands started shaking. He grabbed the back of a chair just to steady himself. And then he said something that finally made everything clear. "Oh my God, your sister didn't know." I narrowed my eyes. "Didn't know what?" He hesitated, swallowing hard. "She didn't know you were the one investigating my company." For a second, the entire room felt heavier. Now it made sense. Everything. I worked in corporate compliance, and for the past few months, I had been leading a quiet investigation into a financial consulting firm suspected of serious irregularities, a case that was growing bigger every week, and somehow, Ethan was connected to it. I folded my arms, watching him carefully. "At the wedding, I thought your name was just a coincidence," he said quickly. "But then I saw you again, and I started worrying." His words came faster now. "I asked your sister about your job. She said you worked in compliance, but she didn't know details. I needed to make sure you stayed away." I let out a slow breath. "So instead, you told my family I'd ruin the vibe?" He looked down, ashamed. "I needed distance," he admitted. "If you figured out where I worked, I could lose everything." The irony hit me hard. My own family had excluded me, not because of who I was, but because of what I might discover. I looked him straight in the eyes. Calm, steady. "Ethan, the investigation already connected your company last week." His head snapped up. "What?" "We've already flagged your firm in a financial audit," I continued. "The records are being reviewed." His face completely fell apart. "Fear. Real fear." "You're going to report it," he whispered. I didn't answer immediately. I just watched him, the man who had pushed me out of my own family, just to protect himself. Because what he didn't realize yet was that this wasn't just an investigation anymore. It was about consequences. Ethan stood there, completely broken. Gone was the confident man my sister had married. In front of me now was someone who knew his time was running out. "That depends on what we find," I finally said. My voice was calm but firm. "But if I were you, I'd start preparing for some serious questions." He didn't argue, didn't defend himself. He just nodded slowly, like someone accepting something inevitable. After a long, heavy silence, he muttered a quiet apology and turned to leave. Each step looked heavier than the last, like he was walking straight into a storm he couldn't escape. The moment the doors closed behind him, the room came back to life. My assistant walked over, wide-eyed. "Do I even want to know what that was?" she asked. I exhaled softly and gave a small smile. "Not today." But later that evening, I was back in my apartment, alone again. Only this time, things felt different. I thought about everything that had happened. My family believed I was the problem, that I would ruin their perfect holiday. But the truth? The only reason Ethan feared me was because he already knew what he had done. And no matter how far he tried to push me away, the truth still found him, because it always does. And what my family didn't realize yet was that this story wasn't over, because the truth I uncovered next would change everything they believed about him and about me.